Good evening. My name is Rich Mucci. I'm the chair of the Winchester Select Board. Welcome to the Monday, July 18th, 2022 Winchester Select Board meeting. I am joined this evening by Vice Chair Anthea Brady, members Mariana Guluboff, John Fallon, Michael Betancourt, and Acting Town Manager Beth Rudolph. We have a jam-packed agenda. Bill Ryerson is to join us as well, legendary photographer. And we have a jam-packed agenda, so we're going to get right into it with the acceptance of some donations.
I move we accept with gratitude a donation of $3,200 from the Enka Society to the Police Department to fund the department's CPR and first aid training and CPR equipment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move we accept with gratitude a donation of $20,000 from the Cummings Foundation for the 2022 disbursement of the grant awarded to the Coalition for Safer Community Educational Programs.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Move we accept with gratitude a donation of $2,966.47 from Susan Berdicchio's dissolved campaign account to be deposited into the town's general fund as allowed by the state's Office of Campaign and Political Finance.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Move we accept with gratitude a donation of $33,334 from the Cummings Foundation for the third-year funding of a 3-year initiative to promote cultural competency at the Jenks Center.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Move we accept with gratitude a donation of $240 to the Council on Aging for appreciation of services provided by the Council on Aging.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's great. Thank you, everyone, for those donations. That's almost $60,000 in donations to the town in about 2 minutes. So thank you very much. Very well. Thank you to the Cummings Foundation for their generous support of the Coalition for Safer Community and the Jenks Center as well. So thanks, everyone, for their donations.
And we have an additional from the supplemental.
Oh, we do. That's right. Good thinking.
So I move we accept with gratitude a donation of $250 from Fell's Hardware, Inc. to the Recreation Department to support the summer concerts on the Common.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right. Beth, if it's all right with you, I think I'm going to jump right into public comment.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Because we have some visitors here today. So anyone here for public comment, we will give you 3 minutes to speak on any topic on the agenda of the Select Board. I know we also have a special presentation. We have some French students with us today, so if you wanted to come up first.
Yes, that would be very nice.
Come on up to the table, join us at the table.
Okay, all
Have a
right.
seat, make yourself at home.
The three, yeah. Come on.
My French isn't very good, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. They speak English, excellent English.
Perfect. Welcome.
You know, Winchester has been sister city with Saint-Germain-en-Laye, France, for 32 years now. And we have a number of social activities that we do back and forth. One of those is that Joyce Anderson's French class, they exchange during the school year generally, you know, February and April with St. Augustine School there. And this year, the children's trip to here took place in June because of you know, the difficulties earlier in the year with COVID. And but recently we sent 3 American students, high school students, to Saint-Germain, and they worked and volunteered in Saint-Germain for 3 weeks. And as a reciprocation, we now have 3 students from Saint-Germain that are here locally, and they have host families, and they also volunteer at different businesses for the 3 weeks that they're here. Okay. And I thought I would just mention their names, which is Camille Seigneur, Max Bergain, and Louis Demont. And I'm going to let each one of them address you, and they'll say a few words about maybe where they're working, where their host family is, and what they're doing here.
Great.
Yeah, okay. So thanks for welcoming, and I'm really happy and lucky to be here for this experience. My name is Camille Saunier. I'm a political student in France, in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, in Sciences Po. Now I have the chance to work with Michael Day, the representative of Stoneham and Winchester, and I'm working at the State House for a few weeks. And I'm in the house of Michael Druffo and Sigali Hoffman. So it's really nice. There is a lot of kids, a lot of activities. And yeah, I just want to thank you back for the welcome.
That's great.
And what do you, when you graduate, what are you hoping to do for maybe your first job or?
First job, my dream is to work in some national parks in France, like in the French Alps. It could be really, really nice. Or maybe politics. It's another option because I'm discovering that word and it's really nice here.
Good.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Maxence. Usually we call me Max because it's easier to pronounce. So Maxence is again. So I'm really happy to be here too. It's really fantastic. Discovering the city, discovering other country, what is different, the way we eat, the way we live. Also, I really like what I'm doing here. So I am working at Blessed Tech Company in the next city with Albert Moussa. And because I want to become an engineer, I am already studying in France to become one. What I'm doing is really the job of an engineer, but easier, or maybe just the beginning to discover. It's really interesting. I love what I'm doing right now, and I really like talking to people, especially being able to talk in English, to practice. It's really fantastic. So thank you.
Great. Welcome.
So when you finally graduate, what area of engineering do you think you'll find a job?
I am currently studying automatic, so whenever it's like to upgrade a car or to like create a automatic vacuum robots, it's really it's interesting. It is.
And so, hi, my name is Louis Dumont. So I've been living in Saint-Germain-en-Laye for all my life, but I'm doing my upper studies in Lille, where I'm studying economics and finance. And so here in Winchester, I have the opportunity to stay at John McConnell House, so who's very kind and who's been hosting French people for a long time, I think. And so in Winchester, I have also the opportunity to work at Kids Talk Theater. So I'm around children that are like 4 and 5 years old, so it's really amazing. And so I think I've been given this job because I had the experience of coaching other kids, like in the sport, so in field hockey. And so it's really great to have the opportunity to talk English, be around only like English people speaking. And so thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think we're all grateful for this.
Yeah, sure, really.
Well,
And in fact, his sister,
Yeah, both of my sisters did also this exchange and came to Winchester. And actually when the older one, 6 years ago, came here, it was actually the first time I came to the United States with my family. And so we went in New York and Boston. And so now I have the opportunity to be in Winchester. So it's really cool. It's cool. Yeah.
we welcome all of you. Besides yourself, is this your first time in the United States, or have you been here before?
Yes, first 2 years.
No.
What do you think of Boston?
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, tall building everywhere. It's really huge. Really.
How long have you been here so far?
1 week.
1 week. All right, so you got 2 more weeks left.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing you've done so far?
Maybe the food is like. I mean, there's something like the ice cream are really, really great here.
We have good ice cream. Where do they take you for ice cream? We could give you some recommendations.
Maybe. I was in the town, like I ate some frozen hoagies.
Oh yeah,
and
frozen
we
hoagies.
don't
Are good.
have that kind in France. So.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
Yep, you're going to need some frozen hoagies in the next couple of days. We're going to have some warm temperatures. Not as warm as it is in France, I don't think, but
No, in France currently, yes.
it's pretty warm. But well, we welcome all of you. Hope you enjoy Boston. Hope you get to experience everything that our great city has to offer. You know, and maybe you'll decide Boston's better than New York after the 3 weeks. But we welcome you. This is always a great program to do this. Let me know when the select board exchange happens. I'm happy to go over to France.
You know, in one of the things I didn't get to mention was besides the students exchanges, right, we do the adults also. And this, the first week in October, we're going to France, and we're going to go to the Basque area of France. So there's still time to sign up if you'd like to go. You have to take the first week of October off. But next year, it'd be time for the French to come over here. And they want to be in this general area of Winchester and Boston. So there'll be time where we can get together. And I believe that the mayor, Perricard, Arnaud Perricard, might come during that time frame also.
Well, that's
So,
great.
okay.
Keep us advised.
Could we get a picture of?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you maybe, you three just
sure.
go around there and?
Come on over.
Or do you want to come around there to make
Yeah,
it
we come
easier?
over there for Bill. Bill, he's over here, so we'll come around there.
Okay, all right, and I wanna get one on my own.
Should we sit or?
Yeah, why don't you sit down?
Okay.
Just go behind you. We'll give you a wrap here.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna get this one for my phone, then I'll.
Bill, you want to take one for Jen?
No, I got them downstairs.
Okay. All right, then everybody look at me.
Can I have you take my, I'll get in there too.
Oh, by the way, this is the other piece of my resume. I'm the official photographer.
Yes.
Okay, I want to do one more with you and
We have a Facebook page, so this is where you'll
Annette?
wind up.
look at me. All right, great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for.
Have fun. Nice meeting you. Thanks for coming up.
Nice meeting you all. Enjoy your stay. Hopefully we'll see you around the town.
On Wednesday, John McConnell, who's the vice president, is going to take them to on a tour of Harvard University.
Great.
So,
Terrific.
Hopefully you get to see a Red Sox game or something like that too.
We're not going to do that. Right.
You have to approve that.
Goodbye. Thank you.
bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah. I don't mind that. I just feel like when I saw the pictures of it.
All right. I will open it up to further public comment if anyone's here for public comment. Seeing no one, I will close public comment, and we will get right into the town manager's report. Beth?
Thank you. So just a couple things. As I mentioned at the last meeting, the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs has declared a level 2 significant drought in the Northeast. It's actually expanded beyond kind of the Northeast area and into Western Mass. So we in the town of Winchester are served by our reservoir system as well as MWA water, and we do not have any mandatory water controls in place, but we do ask that everybody look to try to conserve as much as possible. I know it's going to be a tough week. A little bit of rain today helps, but I know it's going to be a tough week. So we just ask that people try to conserve as much as possible over the next few weeks, as hopefully we look to more rain in our future. A few board and committee openings. So we have one position open on the Audit Advisory Committee, one position open on the Committee of Names, 3 positions open on the Cultural Council, 1 position open on the EFPBC, and then 1 position open on the Cemetery Advisory Committee. That EFPBC opening has been there for a while, so if there's anybody who's interested in serving in that committee, it's obviously a very busy one with all the school projects we have going on, but very important one as well. And just a few updates on capital construction projects. We have advertised for construction of the Manchester Field Turf Project, which this board approved ARPA funding for at the last meeting. The bid opening for that is scheduled for August 3rd. We'll also be re-advertising the Mystic School Sports Court project later this month with hopefully a mid-August bid opening plan for that. Eversource is continuing their work on the 345 kV project. They just completed or partially finished construction of Manhole 5 this weekend near the corner of Cross Street and Holton Street, and they're going to continue to plug along on Washington and Cross Street on their trench work. Work is ongoing at the North Reservoir Dam and the transfer station. Church Street at Waterfield Road, if you've been by there, it looks pretty different from where it was 8 weeks ago. I think it's turned out great. The contractor did an excellent job working in a very tight area in our town center. So they finished up the final paving last week and just have a few last things to work out there. So I think it turned out really well. We are continuing to work on the installation of the temporary pump station for the Arbor Lane and Wendell Street neighborhood. The pump station and pump skid just arrived last week from Florida, so hopefully those will be installed soon and ready to go. Morocco School roof repairs, there is some work currently going on in the interior of the building, but unfortunately, like most things, are supply chain delays for that roofing material, so that work will likely be pushed off until the fall. And then we have a few additional projects that will be starting up. The Woodside Road at Wildwood Street construction, we're waiting on some grant funding to start construction there, and then the Main Street Bridge Railing project will be coming later this summer. We also, I just wanted to mention, we have a new sanitary sewer overflow notification system. So Mass DEP requires municipalities to notify residents in the case of a sanitary sewer overflow, which happens when there's too much rainwater that gets into our sewer system and causes an overflow into our water bodies. So we now have an alert system on the town's website, and if you go onto the homepage, you can see how to sign up for that, so you can get emails if there is a SSO that happens. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Beth. Any questions for Beth?
Yeah, do we have an estimate on the Woodside and Wildwood when we would get that?
Yeah, so we were able to secure funding through this Shared Streets grant, which has sort of delayed the construction a little bit. So we're hoping that honestly, I was hoping this week, if not in the next few weeks.
Okay, so it's not like it's delayed months, but.
No. I mean, we were hoping to kind of get construction underway earlier in the summer rather than later, but so it'll probably stretch into the beginning of the school year, but I think we can work with that, so, yep.
And the roof repairs for Morocco, is that, now it's being pushed to the fall, is that gonna affect school at all?
So my understanding is that everybody feels like the work can happen while school is in session.
Okay.
So we're continuing to monitor that, but, yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Beth? Hearing none, all right, we will go right to our business agenda, and Beth, I don't know if you wanted to introduce our new library director?
Sure, I think, I assume that's her.
What unfamiliar face.
How are you?
I think it's Nicole, right?
It's Nicole Langley, yes. I'm actually a resident of Medford, or was previously, that's where I was born and grew up. Don't hold that against me. But I'm very familiar with Winchester, as I was with Stoneham. I've been working there for the past 6 years and absolutely love it. Even the past 2 years, which was hard for everyone, we had significant budget cutbacks in the library there, so I'm familiar with knowing where the needs are, seeing where the needs are, and really getting resources there. Another thing I wanted the board to know, as Jane and the trustees know, is that I value people above everything else. So when I say people, I mean our residents and visitors. We had some students here from France. I'm talking about our staff in the library and the rest of the town. And all of you who serve in various important positions. So I'm ready to work with all of you. I find that very important. I have just completed, along with another town hall staff person, Stacy Ward, the Mass Municipal Association certificate course in the leadership in local government. So I'm very eager to understand and work with the rest of the town administration on anything that the library needs, but to continue the work that has been done in the library. But I do have some new ideas, and I'm willing to get into those very soon, we hope. But if anyone has any questions or comments, I certainly don't mind the answer.
I just want to welcome you to Winchester. Thank you for coming. We look forward to having you work in the town. Our library is, obviously a cherished part of the town. Speaking for someone who's got a 12 and a 7-year-old that frequent the library, it's a great place, and the trustees have done a great job maintaining it. And so, you're replacing someone who's been here a long time, who had a storied career in the industry, and so we welcome you and wish you best of luck.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be the next person to pick up the reins in that sense. I saw the plaque outside the offices in the library and realized how many library directors there have been, which haven't been all that many. So people, when they work here, especially in this position, they see the value in working here, they want to stay here. They want to be here long-term, and I hope to continue that.
Great.
So thank you.
Comments, questions?
No, welcome.
No?
Welcome.
Yeah.
And the library is a treasured resource for people of all ages in town. And it's a place where, people volunteer and people go. And a lot of the kids go after school as well. And it's a great place for kids because our schools are so, especially the middle school and high school are so close. So the library is a great place for kids to go after school. And so it's a great resource.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you. Good luck with everything. I'm sure our paths will cross at some point again, so.
Absolutely.
She will.
Good luck.
She's one of your new department heads. So.
This is our first time meeting, actually, so.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Best of luck. Thank you, Jane.
Next on our agenda, is Alan coming tonight?
Thought so.
Jimmy?
Jimmy's here. Jimmy Shattuck. If you want to tee that up, Jimmy Shattuck's here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought he was.
All right,
Why don't you,
we'll give him a couple minutes. We've got other stuff, so.
okay, well, yes, I would move on.
Yep. I see Leora here. Leora, do you want to come on up?
Yeah. Corey's gonna just come up with me.
Sure,
I know
absolutely.
that time is of the essence, and we're gonna make this quick. I was wondering if you wanted us to use the slide deck, just refer to the slide deck that we sent you all about the project.
You can use it only for the public at home that may have not had a chance to see it, so they can
For
broadcast
the
it.
public at home then.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting us. It's exciting. We're excited about this project. I'm Leora from the Network for Social Justice, and I have with me Hillary Turkowitz from our Response and Advocacy Committee. And we are here today. Perfect, thank you. To talk a little bit about the Lived Experience Survey, which is an initiative that we have through a Massachusetts state earmark grant. So that's the money that's been provided for this. We got that grant back in January, and I'm sort of going to walk through the idea behind the survey and hopefully how the town can get involved, be a community partner in this. So, very straightforward, thank you. So this is designed to be a town-wide effort to gather data from people who live, work, study, and worship in Winchester on their experiences of discrimination, of exclusion, harassment. Any aspect of their identity is sort of taken into consideration when we talk about what it means to be marginalized and how we're defining this group. So it's very broadly defined. This is actually a survey that has been adopted from elsewhere. So this is not something we've started. This is actually something started in the town of Needham in 2020, and subsequently Shrewsbury, Sudbury, and Wayland have all adopted it. It is initially, when we approached this idea for the Lived Experience Survey, the opportunity seemed to be to gather some data that other towns were gathering anyway, so to create something a bit systematic in terms of the types of things that were being looked at. And I'll talk again about those towns a little bit later, but one of the things that I think is really interesting or an opportunity here is that this is an ongoing process of continual improvement. So we've taken what Needham's done, we sort of talked to the other towns, and we're working through a little bit of a new model for this, which we're hoping to pass on to other towns as well.
I think Leora will talk a little bit about that. We've done some beta testing with a group of people throughout town, so we've tried to adapt it to what we think would be most relevant for Winchester.
So in terms of the purpose, how we see the Lived Experience Survey situated is we're looking to further advance the Select Board's human rights statement, to bring it to life, to give it a new opportunity for visibility and for use in this town. We're looking to better understand community concerns around incidents of discrimination broadly defined. So this is not just, and I'll talk in a minute, this is not just about hate crimes, this is really any incident, and the heart of it is an incident report of discrimination. And it's, I think most importantly, we're looking to provide data to underscore which groups are feeling marginalized or mistreated in some way, common themes that might come up in terms of the type of incident, the context, geographic or other for the incident, timing, and how people themselves responded, either how people knew how to respond, who they knew to go to, the right course of action, opportunities, and also maybe missed opportunities for things that people could have done differently. one thing that's really important, it's highlighted here, and I'll mention it again, the data will be de-individualized. The idea is ultimately it's aggregated and it'll be open source. This is not something of the domain of the Network for Social Justice. This is something ideally that could be open to any town entity as an open source once it's de-identified and scrubbed.
So when I think of the purpose of this survey and some of the questions that come up, I think about a guideline that one of the favorite guidelines or community agreements the network uses, which is to adopt both and thinking as opposed to either or thinking. And I think what's relevant about that here is that we know Winchester can be a very welcoming and inclusive community, and we've, as chair of the response committee, I've heard that from many people over the years. And there are also many incidents we hear of people being uncomfortable, people, for instance, youth being bullied in their neighborhoods or in schools, people being watched in local stores or treated differently, people not being heard. So it's a both and. We know the community is great, and we also know it can be better, that people are having uncomfortable experiences. The other both and is the town, local nonprofits, faith communities in the network. We've been working on this for years, and we know we can do better. And so the purpose of this survey is to help us do better.
And we are looking at it as a town resource, and that's how we're looking to develop it and sort of get buy-in to it as well.
So is the, one of the outcomes of this to have a targeted education program, so people may unknowingly be discriminating and making others uncomfortable? I mean, I'm just, is that?
I think we can take the direction for this in a lot of different ways, and I think different groups can use it in terms of what comes out in the survey for community education, for maybe changes in policy, for targeted outreach. So I think there's no agenda there, but there's a lot of opportunity once we see the data. But I think that's a good question. We're thinking about that ourselves. Two sections of so we've actually sent out a PDF which showed you the whole Survey Monkey in each one of the questions. So the first section is the demographic information, and I'll give you a snapshot of that in a second. And the second section is actually the incident report itself. Now, important that you can complete this on behalf of yourself or on behalf of children, elders in your care, those who might need assistance. Each one of those people is asked to list some of the demographic data. Questions relate to, so this is just a snapshot, the type of incident, the details of the incident, how, when, how, whom, where, response or follow-up that took place, reasons for not taking action, so people are invited to reflect on that, and I think maybe most importantly in some ways, resources that would make Winchester a more welcoming place to live. So soliciting that information from the folks who fill out the survey already. What could have helped you? If you didn't take action, what else can we have in this community?
And that's about the awareness raising, like you're saying, maybe we would learn that there is that awareness for more education.
So from a privacy standpoint, let's say I fill this out and I make allegations against Rich, and I use Rich's name. I'm anonymous. Rich's name's in there.
Right, but what our plan is, well, we would anonymize anything that includes a name for sure, but we would not use a narrative unless we run it by the original person, and we have looked at it through that kind of screen.
So when Needham, I went through Needham's survey today in their report, which is about 55 pages, and when Needham did it, it seemed like their responses were more open-ended rather than, you know, as multiple choice. It seemed like the Winchester one's, you know, very, you know, multiple choice, whereas the Needham was open-ended. And the Needham one, they had in big, bold, underlined letters, you know, please do not don't use any names or anything like that in there. Was there a conscious decision not to have it open-ended, or?
We weren't soliciting.
Do you want to? Well, yes, because the Needham survey takes a long time to complete. And one of the things that was really important to us is to really get a comprehensive snapshot of the entire community. So we're hoping for broad participation. That's why we're here, to get help getting this used town-wide. And we felt the Needham survey was more about, they were preparing to do a program where people share narratives. We're hoping to get more information. So yes, it was intentional to try and shorten the survey. That's part of why it's not there.
Yeah, I guess where I sit is, you know, if we're trying to gather data for the, you know, lived experiences in Winchester, I mean, checking boxes for people, I'm not sure if that's the best avenue to get that, rather than someone just telling their story. I mean, because anecdotally, we've all heard these stories. So, you know, I think maybe somewhere there might, just a suggestion would be to have some type of open response to allow people to share their
I think
narrative.
there was a brief
There's a brief
opportunity.
There's a brief
Right.
opportunity, but it comes kind of towards the end.
Right.
And we were sort of trying to balance. We didn't want it to be a storytelling project per se. It wasn't geared around people telling stories in the end in an open forum. We wanted the data, and we actually wanted to make sure that we were staying in line with what the other towns had asked in terms of their key questions.
Yep.
But there's a possibility that we could add in a question or two to sort of come to a middle ground in terms of what we did and what some of the other towns did.
One of the key questions that Needham asked was just in terms of your relationship to Needham. Like, do you live here? Do you work here? You know, how long have you lived here? I forget I'm trying to find the questions, but I didn't, in my quick look at the Winchester one, I didn't see those types of questions.
I don't think
saw-
we asked.
Yeah.
I don't think we asked.
I would just be curious, you know, if it's workers or people, you know, students, or if we're trying to gather data, I would be curious about those types of questions.
And that could be done on behalf of you or on behalf of somebody else. So that's something that we've added in a little bit. We wanted to make sure we knew who was filling it out.
And then my question would be, so it was, you know, what best describes your relationship to Needham? I live here, I work here, I study here, other. For how long have you lived in Needham? Less than a month, less than a year. It goes on and on.
Yeah.
The other question that I had was, so is there a committee so Needham formed a lived experience project review committee. Do we have a committee formed like that?
So I'll talk about the process in a sec, but we did not have a committee that we formed specifically. We actually had a committee within the network. We didn't just reach out to folks in the network. We reached out to the community of folks that we work with to get a bit of a demographic spread to start going through this, and that's how we did the beta testing. They sent it out, so we got folks that they were in touch with as well to do some, and the survey changed quite a bit as people said, this isn't clear, I wouldn't want to say this, etc. We can do more of the beta testing. I think we said this is a point where it would be good to talk to the select board and see where we're at. It is an initiative of the Network for Social Justice. And that being said, if it's going to be a community project, we would like some buy-in from a wider group of partners, and maybe they have additional things that they need to see as part of this as well.
Yeah, I mean, their review committee in Needham consisted of an anthropologist, someone from economics, social worker, a writer, public health person, an educator, and an inclusive leader. Not sure what that is, but yeah. Just a thought. And then my last question is, you know, I understand it's going to be open source and available, you know, townwide. But what is the end product? Are we going to be producing a report? And who would be drafting that report? And would there be some type of committee involved in the drafting of that report?
So the end product, that's a good question. The end product in terms of the actual report would be drafted likely by us. That's sort of how we wrote the grant and how we said we would follow up on this. In terms of a committee to look over that or hold the data, that's actually a big question for here in terms of we have the funding, who is collecting this data? How then do we ensure that it's one person that is not connected to the network who's looking at the data, de-identifying it, and then bringing it back so a group of people or a group within the network can actually work with it? Okay. So we have some flexibility with the earmark grant to make those decisions in a way that works for everyone.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay, that's okay. Some of these questions we look at, but some of these questions are good to be bringing up right now.
And we hope to have as many community partners as possible and as much buy-in from the community. We've had a conversation with the assistant director of the library and with the police chief, and they both expressed interest in seeing the data and seemed supportive of the project.
And also holding the survey. So we're almost there. This is a sample demographic question. You've all seen this. This is how it might look on a phone with SurveyMonkey, and this, and you've seen this in the report, the PDF that we gave you. This is one of the demographic questions. Here's another one as it's laid out. How do you identify? And of course you can choose not to answer. And again, this is for the person filling it out as well as the person on behalf, if they're filling it out on behalf of somebody else. So development to date, we've touched on a lot of this now, so I'm going to rush through this. It was initially conceived through the Massachusetts Human Rights Coalition, of which the network is a member, and that was all the way back pre-COVID, fall 2019. Somerville also had a really interesting convening about the underreporting of incidents throughout suburban communities, alongside the national rise in hate crimes, and sort of looking at what was happening in terms of underreporting, which was then maybe not giving warning signals to larger incidents. And that's where the initiative sort of started to formulate. Ongoing, as we said, we've consulted with a number of different communities that have done this. We've learned some best practices. We've also seen that sometimes this is very skewed in terms of who actually signs on to support this survey, and then where they're collecting the data from, and what organizations or not, or entities in town are represented. Fall 2021 was when we applied for the earmark, and we got the funding in January. That led us to the survey, sending it around, bringing a group of people together for the questions, and then doing a small beta test, and then building the survey on SurveyMonkey. And now we have the SurveyMonkey and the survey, at least in the format that you've seen, built. So managing the data, this also we've talked about. All data is going to be collected through SurveyMonkey, which is, again, we're paying for that. That is part of the earmark. That's us. We can also pay for someone to be collecting the data. We're not expecting this to just be something that flows into the network office, and that has to be something that's discussed and decided upon. The process is going to be anonymous. Participants will be asked if they are willing to have their narrative shared. So there is that possibility to get stories out, and there is that possibility to add another question of more open-ended storytelling. However, you're absolutely right, Rich. We kept it much more to demographic and questions that could be checked off on a list or multiple choice. Privacy, de-identified, de-aggregated before anything goes into a report, which would be culminated at around 6 months, and then I think reevaluated at around a year after the survey has been circulated. It's not a survey that we're hoping will disappear after the year. I actually think realistically we don't know how many responses we're going to get, so we're hoping that it could be something that's in the public domain for much longer than that, ongoing, but we have opportunities to check in on where we're at with the survey. Left side, how can the town support this? So there are effectively 3 things that can be done. One is putting it on the website, putting a link on the website, having a paper copy, and that's something that we're going to ask a lot of entities in town to be part of. We've already asked the police, and we've already talked to the library about that possibility. Another is, I think we're going to need, and we've learned this from other towns, a lot of ways to give this visibility. So whether or not it's a kickoff event that we just introduce the survey and how to fill it out, whether or not it's a speaker. Other towns have used storytelling events after a certain number of certain period of time with the survey, and I think we need to decide what's going to work for us. And then elevating it among organizations in town. And there's a number of different ways to do that. We are definitely seeing this as a community coalition building effort, not something that is Network for Social Justice labeled and out there. And the idea is the larger group that we have in town that are willing to support this, the more the data will be representative, and no one group will feel like, okay, well, they're only talking about incidents in the library because that is the organization that signed, the entity that signed on to be part of this initiative. So,
and as Leora said in our conversations with the other towns, when they have town support, they feel much more comfortable that the data is representative of the town as a whole.
So, reading the Needham report, I think, which I thought they did an excellent job on, they leveraged their high school alumni association, and they used social media. One thing that they regretted that they weren't able to do if they were doing in the future was paper copies, right, for the marginalized that maybe can't get to social media or online. They wanted to make sure they had those available. So.
Right, and we plan to have paper copies, and we also plan to have translated versions, and we've spoken with people in the schools, and right now the 3 languages we plan to have it translated into are Mandarin, Portuguese, and Spanish. So.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing is I'd love to see an open response. I just worry about checking off boxes, and
Is it your feeling that the open response should be earlier? Because there is an opportunity for open response.
I do
here.
Needham put it right up front.
Right.
I mean, it was after they had a few demographic questions up front, and then they went right to the open response, and then they went back to demographic questions. But right up front, they said, please, you know, it was very simple. Below, please write about your story. Your story should tell about a local experience with racism and prejudice. As you write, try to include the following information. Describe the event, what happened, who was involved, in what sequence did the event unfold. Describe the setting, where did it happen, when did it happen. Reminder, do not use names when describing yourself, your friends, or anyone else in your story. And then it said, did anyone else see what happened? And then who were the bystanders? How did they react? I mean, I think that's,
So I
to me,
think
that's
there
data
can
that
be
I
a-
would want to know.
Right. There may be a way to be efficient about getting some of that information and open it up a little bit more, and we
Yep.
can talk about that. That's good feedback.
And then just the report. I mean, I think, you know, you're going to have a lot of information, hopefully. I think they had 93 responses when they did this in Needham the first time. So, you know, hopefully we get a lot more than that. But, you know, just, you know, what the end product will look like, who's responsible for that, and, you know, I think is important. You know, gathering this information is great, but I think what we do with it is more important.
Mhm.
That's just my take, and then.
That could be part of the events that we're actually using to start this off with, talking to folks, because people keep landing on specifically that point. Well, what are we going to do with it?
Yep.
Well, what could we do with it based on the type of information we're getting? So I feel like we could actually front load that as a question early on in the process of rolling this out.
Yeah. Okay. Questions, thoughts, anyone?
Yeah.
I have some questions, which just kind of survey related, and thinking of making it both accessible to people to respond, but also, you know, giving you a bulk of information. Some considerations I saw looking through this is it's not specifically articulated that it's not necessarily a reporting tool, like a way to say this happened and someone will follow up on it. So, you know, being clear that this is a way to share an experience, but I think, Hillary, I saw your email is sort of towards the end with that type of thing. So being upfront about that. Also, you know, making sure that people are aware that they can be anonymous, not provide that if they're not comfortable providing the demographic information, but that their information won't be shared, that the data will be aggregated, and being very upfront that anything they share will be de-identified and not available. And that may be to the point of saying, you know, your open response would not be specific as well. I think I agree with Rich as well, like having that piece more towards the front to just share a little bit and get people to provide information, what happened, and then, you know, follow on with the follow-up questions. A consideration that I had, just knowing that there is research in, I think it's in education and is around SAT tests about demographics, is it most effective to have the demographics up front? Will people kind of burn out answering them at the front versus sort of checking the boxes at the end? And also just that sometimes that sort of frames your thinking and how you answer other questions if you've done the demographics there. And I'm sure you have lots of other feedback. I tend to enjoy surveys and feedback around surveys, but I do appreciate that this sort of the ethos of the project, and that this will be sort of collected and can be used to kind of look sort of at the community as a whole and understand, you know, are there areas to focus on, or locations, age ranges, things like that, and can definitely help as a sort of community conversation starter, education piece down the road.
I think one thing I would want to mention is, because we thought about the demographics at the end. I think that was our initial thing, and after some of the beta testing, we moved them up based on what people said. And I think any change that we've made, we'd want to do the same beta testing again. Like, we'll see sort of what people have said, so even if we'll go to a new group. But I think that's, all of this was being taken down.
Yeah, and the other thing about that, you may have looked at this as well, is you kind of say you can provide information you can answer this for somebody else, and I don't know if it's confusing if the first question is, what's your current age? And someone says, is that me? Or if I'm answering that
We've
for my
gone through
child.
this repeatedly, absolutely.
So even saying like, you know, if it's to have the first question be, are you reporting for yourself or for someone else? And then to do the demographics for yourself and for someone else, but to clarify that, because they could get, you know, confused at that point and want to backtrack.
We also worked on deciding to clarify who the someone else is, someone in your care, because what we didn't want people to do was report on anecdotes or things they had overheard, and so that's why some of that language is in there like that.
Okay, but that's a good point too.
Farrell, you?
Yeah, so I don't have comments on the survey itself, but I think, you know, I like the way you said that, you know, Winchester is a welcoming community, and there are also issues that we have to address, and I think, you know, it's important to have the data to know what the issues are to address, and I know you've been getting a lot of questions of what you plan to do with this, and I think that I think that's a very hard question to answer until we know what the responses are, right? I think that the data as it comes in, it will reveal the paths and the things that we can do to make our community more welcoming. So yeah, I think it's very important to collect this, and you know, if it's a question that you want to have an answer for, because a lot of people are asking, you know, you can have that, but in my view, I think that what you're going to do with it is really going to be revealed once you have the data and once you know what the issues are, rather than saying up front what you're going to be able to do. It's hard to say what you're going to do if you don't know what the problem is. Right?
And that also, just to underscore again, why we want widespread participation, because in one of the communities, might have been Needham because of the Alumni Association, they were getting a lot about the schools because that was the network they were reaching out to. So yes, I mean, that's important, but if you really want to prioritize where your efforts are going to go, because they can't go everywhere, getting that broader look would be helpful.
Anyone else?
I'll just say thank you. I think, I know this is evolved in different communities, and I think it, when you look at Shrewsbury or you look at Needham, I mean, every community is different, as Winchester is, and it'll be great to see some of the information, and I hope we can share in the process of programming around some of the issues that come through it. I think it's important for people to know too that if the town wants to be involved, where the data is going and what's happening with it, because I know specifically some minority communities are very reluctant to provide community, you know, information to governmental organizations, right? So we may be not reaching the groups that we really need to hear from in the community, if that's the case. So I think I agree with everyone's comments, and certainly putting the some of the anecdotal information to get some of that oral history up front, I think makes sense, and giving people the opportunity to, if they provide that, to say, you know, if this is tough for you, you don't have to go through the rest of the survey, you know, and because I know sometimes I get a lot of surveys on my phone, and sometimes I make it through it, sometimes I don't, but sometimes that personal information is the most helpful for us to give us a view into someone's you know, world that we otherwise wouldn't see, more than the specific box checking. So thanks, looks great. I look forward to hearing more about it and seeing how we can participate. So thanks.
So what would the process be from here? Like if we wanted to see if the town would consider having it accessible on the website, that's what would have to happen to see.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't usually vote on everything that goes onto the website, but I mean, we can certainly, I mean, does anyone have an issue with it being, the link for the survey being put up on the website? I mean, we have a lot of links to different things out there, so I've got no issue with that.
That's fine with me.
Great.
I think you've all given us some really good feedback as well, so we're going to go back and maybe do a little more work on it, and it'll be available to you before anything is even finalized, and then we'll go from there.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Thank you.
We'll go Wildwood Cemetery Committee request. Alan? How are you?
I'm good. Mr. Chairman, Alan Iden, Chair of the Cemetery Advisory Committee. And I'd say thank goodness for WinCam, because I was in my kitchen getting ready for dinner and I heard the chairman say, "Is Alan gonna be here?" I think he might be talking about me. And then I saw Jim Shattuck in the audience. I said, "You know, we might be on the agenda tonight." Nobody called me.
Good thing you were in town, right?
Good thing I was in town and had to quickly change, and
You could have brought dinner for all of us, you know?
well, I don't even have dinner for me yet. Mr. Chairman, I'm here to, the Cemetery Advisory Committee would like to propose a change to the rates at the cemetery. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but I can read the letter that I sent to Mr. Betancourt, if you'd like, just to summarize.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you summarize? I mean, we got a copy of the letter in our packet,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
just summarize what the request is.
Yeah, we became aware of a provision in the cemetery rates that anyone who has moved out of town, as long as they were a resident here for at least 10 years, can still buy a plot or a niche in the cemetery at double the cost. So basically, the day you move out of town, you pay double. And the day you move into town, you can pay the regular rate. And we thought that was unfair, particularly to longtime residents. And I know of a couple that both grew up in Winchester, lived in Winchester for 35 years, raised their kids in Winchester, and downsized, empty nested and downsized, and discovered a year or two later that, yes, they could still buy a plot, but they were gonna pay another $3,200. And the committee discussed it and said that we felt that was kind of unfair for, particularly for a couple that had spent 35 years here paying their taxes and contributing to the town and serving on committees. And then we went a little deeper into it, and Jim can address the financial aspects. There was really only 4 or 5 cases a year.
Well, what I did was I pulled some of the data we had from the past 5 years on applications, and it was a little over 4 people. I know it's kind of funny, but that was the average with the 5. It was 4.2 families a year were paying the non-resident fee. And the income that was brought in, total surcharge was the average over the 5 was around 11,500. So it wasn't a lot of income that was being lost. We found with the study I did here. So that was one of the reasons we wanted us to bring forward. So that was all on the purchase of lots. The information that you have, I don't know if you have the study, but I can definitely get it out to you on the 5 years. So that was one of the reasons that we found that it wasn't worth continuing to double the cost. This probably comes up, I would say, like you said, comes up, well, 5 people a year pay the lot, pay for the double. A lot of them, of course, aren't happy with it. I probably lose 5 or 6 sales a year, at least, from people who didn't understand the rule or didn't know you had to be a resident. Most of them had just moved out, usually. People who just retired, moved out of town, decided to downsize their house or whatever. But usually, most of them with kids, they've gone through the school system. So that's the other issue is we're trying to think of a good way to get out to the residents, the current residents, on the non-resident thing, So we've discussed different ways, maybe put it on the website, reach out to people. We could explain that a little better on that if that was an option to us. But it's just trying to inform people, and it was too bad with a lot, people were coming in, they were just kind of getting upset that they didn't know anything about it. And most of them would, those 5 that came in, or 5 or 6 a year, would just walk away, and most of them would probably end up going to another cemetery. But I don't have any real numbers on that. I just know off the top of my head over, I've been there 25 years, so I kind of know people that come out and people who walk away, unfortunately. A little upset, but usually they go to other cemeteries, I think, or find different options, which is too bad, especially if you're a resident, of course, who's paid and lived in the town, supported the town, and all those good things. So.
Yeah, we thought the committee, after input from Mary Curran and Jim, thought that the stress on both the staff and on the people coming in who had been, again, taxpayers and contributors to the town for many years, we don't have an organized way to tell people By the way, you're moving tomorrow, you might want to buy a cemetery plot before you leave. And by the same token, the people who move in, that's really not something first on their mind as soon as they move into town. But there, to his point, there's not a really organized way to, for an exit interview when somebody's leaving the town to say, by the way, before you go, you might want to consider this. And we also looked at cases where somebody might have been away from the town for 20, 30 years. Maybe they were raised in the town, they went away to college, but they still, 20, 30, 40 years later, could consider Winchester their hometown, and they want to be buried here. So again, I think, it was a needless source of stress. We felt it was unfair to former residents, and it was a source of stress to the staff and to the former residents. And again, as we say, a minimal impact on the finances of the cemetery.
Okay. So you would be asking us to approve making the fee for non-residents and residents the same?
As long as you've been a resident for at least 10 years.
10 years.
At some time in the past, you can buy a plot or a niche at the resident price.
Any thoughts on that? Questions?
Seems fair.
I just want to say thanks for bringing this forward. I know the committee's been discussing this for a long time, and I think a lot of circumstances with residents are different, and it's a stressful time, for people to have to deal with a policy like this. And I know that you also evaluated other communities around us, and so that's, we often find when we look at our policies that they're unique, which is not always good. And so I think it's a bad message to send people out of town that have a long-time connection to the community. And I know that there was a lot of thought on, focusing on veterans who have left the, community and everything. But I think it makes sense to just have a clean, clear policy here that people can understand and will send the right message. And I think the economics of it are not a driving factor to maintain the policy either. So I think this makes sense.
So in the wording that was changed, so I see that what was crossed out was 10 years with proof of residency, and the new language just says 10 years without proof of residency. Now, I don't know what you asked as far as proof of residency, and if that was intentional to remove the with proof of residency. Like, I have no issue with removing
Probably,
the double.
no, that's a very good point, right.
I don't know why, did you intend that for us to remove the proof of residency, or?
Probably not. I don't, there's obviously, you can go back to the town census to find out if somebody's been a resident, so I don't think they would have to
I
provide
don't usually
proof.
ask for typical people, I look them up in the resident book, I must say, I do that.
Yeah.
And most of the applications, of course, they come through my office, they go through DPW, and they come over to the town managers, town clerk. So there's a check in place anyway, to check to see who is a resident or not, because they look everyone up.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
actually,
I don't know if we want to keep that language or not.
actually, I think the
Is it on the roll
proposed,
sheet
the
or-
proposed
So
wording, the
the
proposed
sheet-
wording does not have
The
that.
sheet that we got, see, it has
Oh,
crossed
yeah.
out the with proof of residency, but it doesn't have it on the new language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I'm fine with either way because you're check, but.
Yeah, I would just add with proof of residency at the end there.
Yeah,
Okay.
just rewrite, change that, yep.
Any other thoughts? All right, I think, hearing nothing else, if someone wants to make a motion, I think we would consider it.
I move we approve the change to rates for the purchase of lots at Wildwood Cemetery, as proposed with the addition of proof of residency.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Finish your dinner.
It's in the refrigerator.
Nick, you're up. Field policy changes. Yep, go right ahead.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Always welcome, Nick.
I am not going to take up a lot of your time. This subtle changes. We do a yearly review of the field policy. Last year, some of you guys might recall, we did a massive tear down and rebuild, so we looked at it this year, and there's a couple of things that we wanted to just recommend to the committee change. We did run this by school committee. They didn't do an official vote. They brought it up, had me at a meeting, and nothing changed that would affect the school department, so they felt like they didn't need to vote on it and passed it directly to you all.
So it's like a tag, you're it kind of thing?
Yeah, you guys have the potato.
Got it.
We have a document recovery. Here we go. All right, so I highlighted the areas that we recommended a change. So what we found is, in this section here, this is the permitting priority. So it goes by who has first dibs on the field. And as you can tell, the high school gets first use, followed by town youth organizations in the rec department, followed by adults, privates, residents, and then it goes down from there. What we found is that there wasn't a spot for the fee-based or for-profit organizations. They could fall into any one of those categories. What we're finding is some of them actually had 90% Winchester residents in them, and they could technically fall in tier 2 and end up above our adult organizations that are nonprofit in town, and maybe some other things like the private schools or just above Winchester residents. So what we did is we looked at what other towns do, and typically for-profit camps and clinics and groups that are using fields fall well down on the priority list. And they typically give preferential treatment to the nonprofits, the schools, the youth groups and whatnot. So what we did is we decided to plop the for-profit organizations in tier 6 at the same level as a non-resident organization. Most of our for-profit organizations come from out of town, but there is a few that do arise and that are Winchester-based. So we put them in tier 6. So they would get field priority after all of the ones ahead of them, field space has been satisfied. We haven't had an issue with really finding field space for a lot of these groups. Good news is a good time to be on the field management committee where we're getting a lot of revenue into the accounts. We just want to make sure that we're taking care of the homegrown stuff in town before we did the for-profit organizations. So that's the change one. So because of that change, it made us look at our fee-based structure as well. So I'm just going to scroll down to page 3 and here. So what we found is that there was no spot for those private and nonprofit organizations, and we kind of always tried to figure out where they actually fit to get charged. So while we looked at this, we thought it might be a good idea to look at where our fees are for these organizations that are making a lot of money on our fields. We know how much money some of them are making because they give us 15% of gross revenue on grass fields. So we know people are making quite a bit of money when they're running these programs. So when they're on the turf, they usually just pass that on to their participants. So it's not a big deal to look at maybe increasing those fees. So what we did is we put them in tier 5. So tier 5 was all about tournaments. And we wanted to kind of make it both tournaments and private for-profit organizations in there. So what we did is we looked at grass fields with no lights, and we decided that rate should be $40 an hour for use. The original rate that was there was not defined. It was a daily rate, and it didn't say how many fields, if it was for an hour, for a day, for a week, for a month. There was no definition. So we wanted to define that if they're going to use grass fields, they'd be paying $40 an hour per use per field. We decided to keep the light fee, which is again lights, the same. It kind of ramps up from tier 1 all the way to tier 5. We didn't feel like that needed to be increased at all. But what we did want to look at is the fee for our synthetic turf fields, and we felt like private for-profit organizations should pay more than our youth groups, than all of the other people in town that are using the turf. So we are recommending that goes up to $150 an hour. And those are basically the changes that we looked at for this year. So very subtle, but it affects one group. Everything else we decided to keep the same. Any questions?
Yeah, Nick, how do our rates compare to other towns?
We're right in line with most other towns.
Plus or minus 10% kind of?
It's about the same. I think what I'm finding is a lot of towns charge anywhere between $100 and $150 an hour. One of the things that's unique about Winchester and there's not a lot of towns that do charge their youth groups, but I feel like those towns have a lot more of a commercial base. So they have built-in money. So we do things a little bit differently here. I believe our field dock is built on what Lexington did, and Lexington also has similar enterprise account for the recreation department. So I feel like ours was built off what Lexington does. So we're really in line with what Lexington does.
Does this affect Select Board Betancourt softball?
Are you guys making a profit over there?
I retired years ago, but he still plays, I think.
Playing. Jim was out there one night reffing, so he got to
No, that
unfortunately see me.
that's the fan group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that would fall in the tiers above the for-profit.
Yeah, we're rough on that field. So.
As long as we're okay there.
Beautiful now.
It looks great, actually. All the fields, all the work that's been done there recently, it looks great.
Field Management Committee also wanted to thank the board and the town administrator's office for investing in Knowlton Stadium with the Arpa funds. It was, we're very, very happy with that and glad that could move forward. So thank you all.
Question on the light fees for Knowlton Stadium and for Skillings. It's not, I don't see here on this.
So we've never charged anything different. It's a $125 flat rate, and it's a $100.50, will be a $150 flat rate, whether you use lights or not, for those fields. We've never charged additional lights for that because it is a pretty prime rate that they're paying for those. But it's something that, in the future, the Field Management Committee could look at and make changes. And one of the things that we are looking at, just to throw it out there, is the Winchester Youth for grass pays $7, and they can use as much grass fields as they want. So what we're looking at is that hasn't changed in, Jay Gill said, about 15 years. It's always been $7. So that might be something that we look at if we feel like grass fields need to be more money, make more money in that grass fields account. We might want to raise that a couple dollars or two to kind of bring it up to speed. But for the most part, we don't charge for the lights except for GIN.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern with grass is being able to maintain it, right? And if there's a little bit more money to be able to keep them in better condition, that might be.
Yeah. So one of the things is that the grass field accounts also oversee all of the tennis courts and all the basketball courts too. And we know that those cost a lot of money to replace. We're looking to do some work at Leonard. So we do need to make more money on those so that we can upgrade our parks and our facilities before they get beyond being repaired, so.
And a lot of communities that we look at and compare ourselves with have the Community Preservation Act, right? So a lot of those fields, the grass ones, are maintained that way. So there's already built-in revenue, and the other revenue from doing this goes in other places. So that's the tough part.
Yeah.
We're at a little bit of a disadvantage starting out.
Any other questions for Nick? All right, I think this looks good. Thanks, Nick, for coming in. Have a motion to adopt these?
I move we approve the Field Management Committee's policy changes to page 1, section 6, and page 3, tier 5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great night.
See you guys soon.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I think we're gonna go to ARPA funding. We have both chiefs present today, so.
Sure.
Get to them.
Yep.
Do them
I'll
first.
just run through the list.
Sure.
In
Come
the
on up, guys, join us.
memo that I provided to the board, I just kind of recapped
Oh, yeah.
what you've approved to date. So just over almost $1.7 million of ARPA funds for various projects and initiatives. We have about $5.1 million remaining. We have a few things we'd like to see approved tonight, should the board be so inclined. The first one is we talked about a few weeks ago looking to rehab the playground structure at Leonard Field. It's in very poor condition. The first step in the process is to do it's called the master plan, but it's really a very mini master plan. It's not a very large area. So really just looking at the basketball court, the playground space, and what used to be a bathhouse facility there right now is kind of a crumbling concrete structure, which would make a really nice bathhouse or bathroom structure in the future. So we're requesting $12,500 for Chris Huntress, who is the person that we work with on the field turf project, to do a mini master plan for that area to kind of help us conceptualize. Does it make sense to have it laid out the way it is today? What could we do better? And then the next step beyond this would be to fund the design and construction of definitely the playground structure and maybe a little bit more depending on what we see recommended, so.
So as part of the study, I'm sorry, is it a needs analysis, like what we want out of that, and then that drives the plan, or?
Yeah, so I think that, it'll be a kind of a mini version of that, right? There's not that much space. We're not looking to like
Yeah, I
redo
get
the
it.
whole field, move the tennis courts. It's really just focus on that very small kind of corner of the
Yeah.
field. But we'll certainly work with the recreation department and the DPW and other folks to understand what works out there, what doesn't work out there, and what can we see improved out there. Yeah.
And just not to make this like too big a project, but like a little bit of our resident outreach. What did we learn from like the Mystic School?
Yeah.
Was maybe talk to the neighbors.
We can certainly talk to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
What do you think?
The neighbors need a new playground.
There's our outreach. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a good point. It'd be great to have some community input on that plan as well. I mean, Chris is great. Dealing with him on the sports court. I mean, he certainly, had a great meeting with the neighbors there, so it might make sense to do that.
Do you want me to run through all these and then you can do one motion at the end?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the next one is the proposal from Tool for the traffic improvements in the town center. We're actually going to docket this one, push this one off to your meeting in August 1st. We just have a few things we need to clean up on that one. The next one is the reason the two chiefs are here. We have the public safety dispatch equipment. So since 2018, the town has worked to complete upgrades to the public safety radio infrastructure. That includes exterior antenna maintenance and portable and mobile radio. So that work has been funded through our capital planning committee and through town meeting appropriations. I think it's been $125,000 a year or somewhere around there. So that work is actually wrapping up, and the next piece that we need to do is to upgrade the dispatch center, the radio room, including radio equipment, computer hardware and software, fire alarm panels that allow dispatchers to notify both police and fire of emergency calls. This equipment is old and in need of repair and is unable to be repaired at this point due to its age, so we're kind of in a situation where we really need to get things improved. The total request for that is $540,000, and chiefs are here if there's any questions on that.
Thank you both for being with us. Chief Tustin, thank you for the detailed report that you submitted to the board. I guess my first question is, some of these components have been in there since 1982. Do they build them like that today, or are we looking at something that's going to need to be replaced? What's the average lifespan today for this equipment?
We could probably get the same 20 to 30 years out of it if we maintain it. The problem right now with our two fire alarm systems, the older one, the one we salvaged from Arlington, the computer portion of that's really what needs to be upgraded so that we're not having to use old-fashioned circuit boards that we have to put in that, and we can't get those anymore. That's, we're scrounging now for those. We've been able to maintain those two systems because the parts were readily available. But we need to desperately upgrade, the fire alarm component. So along with all the other radio components that we mentioned in the report, we just can't find the parts for them anymore.
I think you've done a great job maintaining them for as long as you have with, some help from our neighbors who've been replacing components more readily than we have. So, any questions for the chiefs?
So would this bring us, give you what you need from a communication standpoint, modernize it, or is there another component that needs to be done for another $200,000? Because it would be really good to understand what the whole enchilada is.
Sure. This should bring us up for the next, 20 years or so as far as the hardware is concerned. Dan can probably speak a little bit more to some of the software issues that we don't have any control over, but the hardware, we're looking at multiple radio systems that we have. We have to meet interoperability. We have redundancy now through the external work that we've been doing. It's cutting down on our maintenance cost. We now have a microwave system for our antennas. The police are rapidly moving to a digital system, which will last for a very long time. The fire department, we're waiting for all of our metro communities. There are 35 metro communities. Currently, we're going to stay analog, but with this new equipment, when the time comes for us to switch to digital, we'll be able to do that without, any additional investment into that. So we're really planning now for the immediate need and also for the future. And again, the only thing that we may not have control over is if a new software release comes out that the computers may not be able to handle. That isn't, an unknown. But the hardware, we should be able to get, a good 20, 25 years out of the hardware.
So this allocation includes the hardware, the software, and the consultants required to integrate this,
Put it all
right?
together,
This
yes.
is- Okay.
This is really the final stage of it. We were able to get the microwave in, which has made a huge difference. Lightning strikes used to just cringe, and we'd be doing a $5,000 or $10,000 repair. So the microwaves have made a huge difference over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is kind of the end part of it, and majority of police departments have gone to digital. We actually had to program our radios that are still analog to be able to hear the other towns. So this will be nice to get us to digital. Majority of the fire is still analog, so if they ever had something with the digital, we could go back onto analog and be able to work both ways. So it's kind of some redundancy there, so we could bump back if we needed to versus just being all digital.
Okay, thank you.
So once this is done, there will be no, so we spent 4 years buying new radios and other equipment, and this is the end of that, right?
Well,
Or the police side, yes.
Just to keep in mind too, the chief was talking about like hardware.
Yeah.
So hardware will last you for as long as you want it to last until it, one, dies, or two, it can't run the software anymore. It's like trying to run a Windows, 10 operating system on a machine that's 10 years old. It's just not gonna happen. So, as long as the software doesn't outgrow the hardware and the hardware doesn't, blow up like any other computer can. Majority of this is under warranty for a while, so,
Yeah.
but yeah.
There may be some operational upgrades. For example, the new fire engine that we're buying, we did budget for the new radios that need to go into that, and those new radios will be compatible with all the work that we've been doing. Our portable radios do take a beating. They're used 24/7, 365. Occasionally, the portable radios need to be upgraded. But, with the investment we've made over the last 5 years, we are in year 5 of the antenna project. Once that is finished, we'll have a complete ring around the town, so we don't have gaps in our coverage. And, we were able to purchase new mobiles and new portable radios in those initial years. So, we have a good head start for that. But, I can't sit here and say that 2 years from now, we might not have to buy a couple more portable radios. Again, they do take a beating, the portables.
I don't mean just a couple, but a whole replacement. One thing is a couple of years ago, well, before the pandemic, the FCC was talking about getting rid of all the analog radios to free up spectrum and go all digital. Is that not?
So that was repealed in December of 2020.
Okay.
The federal government realized that it was gonna be more expensive for them to give us new frequencies than they would have gained from the auction of the current frequencies. So that was actually repealed in December of 2020. So currently, we don't have to worry about that.
So for now, fire will stay analog with.
Well, all our frequencies, we were gonna lose all the frequencies across the board, both police and fire. They were gonna auction them off, and that's not gonna happen now. But as we continue, as Dan said, most police departments already switched to digital. This will give us the capability to do that. And we'll have that redundancy, because we need to have interoperability. We'll have the redundancy to be able to, at a moment's notice, switch the fire department to digital if so needed.
Great, thank you.
Anything else for the chiefs?
Just to say thanks for sticking with this. I know it's been a long road, and we can't continue to cobble together communications equipment for the community. It's necessary for what you do. So I'm glad we're able to move this forward. And to Rich's point, I think that it's almost like we need kind of a communication stabilization fund for these kinds of things, right? Because they're a priority and they're expensive, and they're not going to last 35 years, right? There's just going to be constant upgrades. And I know I'm always suspicious when there's a new iPhone out that my iPhone just starts slowing down quite a bit and not working as well. And so I'm anticipating that as the software changes, that we're going to be in it for a little bit more money on the maintenance side and the software side. So I'm sure that's a part of the budget for the police and fire departments anyways, but we should anticipate that our communications are going to cost more as they need to deliver more for the communities as well. So
Do we want to?
Want me to run through the Mystic window really quick?
Yeah, or we could just accept a motion while the chiefs are sitting here and pass this.
Yeah, I move that we approve ARPA funding request of $540,000 for upgrades to the public, to complete the upgrades to the public safety radio infrastructure.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, chiefs, thanks for coming in.
Yep.
Have a good night.
You're welcome to stay. We'll be another couple hours.
I gotta get back, I gotta get back to a baseball game.
Oh, good luck.
I was coaching the game and I'm like, I gotta go. Did you pay the grass fee?
Thank you. See ya.
So just quickly, one more ARPA item. So this kind of ties back to the Mystic Sports Court where we identified some issues with the windows out of the Mystic School. So we've received a proposal from Gale Associates to evaluate and provide a schematic design for options to replace the glass block and associated steel frame windows at several locations at the school. And that design proposal is for $19,000. So be looking to get that funded through ARPA. Then we'll have a better idea of what the construction costs will be.
Okay, so, any questions on the Leonard Field Playground or the Mystic School window repairs requests?
On the Mystic School, have we coordinated with the school committee and the superintendent on what they plan to do with that building? I mean, if
So I
they
think,
plan to do anything with that building, given that the funding for rehabbing the Courage House failed?
so I think the response every time we've asked is that they have no immediate plans to use the building, so, I mean, I think, regardless, I think, those windows, need to be
Yeah, that's fine.
replaced. I mean, they're riddled with holes and, it's a real eyesore, and, you know, something that should have been replaced a long time ago, so, but yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but every time we've asked, it's been, they have no immediate plans for it. That may change tomorrow, but that's it. Any discussion about these two items? So from our standpoint, I think, you know, with the exception of the town center traffic and pedestrian improvements, that the downtown initiative, I think that would almost round up all the municipal requests. Am I
The other piece was the risk assessment, which we're still
Risk assessment,
trying to
yeah.
wrap our heads around a little bit what the
Okay.
makes sense for a recommendation there. We're meeting with the consultant in the next few weeks there.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think, you know, we should, in the next couple of weeks, have answers on those, and then, you know, be able to move on to some of the other items, maybe for, you know, our middle August meeting or
Yep.
August 1st meeting, the next category of items, so, yeah, I think it makes sense to do some planning here for Leonard Field and also for the Mystic School, so I would support these. I'm not sure what others think.
And for Leonard, the hope is that ultimately whatever we construct would be also funded through ARPA, not just the
Yep.
design. Yep.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate all the information. I mean, we've discussed this a couple times already. And,
Yeah.
It's helpful to have a lot more details.
All right, so if hearing nothing else, I'd just look for a motion on those two items.
I move that we approve funding for a proposal to evaluate the Leonard Field Playground area of $12,500 and funding for a proposal from Gale Associates for the Mystic School windows for $19,000
Second.
From ARPA, right?
from ARPA funding, yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One opposed? Great. Okay. Did that. Did ARPA, did that. Okay. Let's go to, let's just do the Washington Swan RFP selection process. I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I think that's just the schedule, Beth, that
Sure. Yep.
you mentioned.
So the RFP was issued on June 1st. We had a pre-bid site meeting on June 28th with myself and Mike, and there was one developer that attended. To date, we've had 4 developers who've requested RFPs, so not not a huge number of people pulling out RFPs, but really it only takes a few responses. So the RFP responses are due August 1st. Staff will first review those responses for completeness and responsiveness to the RFP criteria. The week of August 8th, the RFP responses that meet the minimum criteria will be distributed to the select board, and the board members would rank those responses. We have Jen Goldson, who we worked with on the Waterfield Lot proposal, or the Waterfield Lot RFP, developing a ranking sheet for us. This schedule presumes that the board will do the rankings and not a separate committee. The idea is that on Monday, August 15th, the board would discuss those rankings and potentially hold the interviews at that time with the RFP respondents, and then possibly have a vote for a recommendation on September 12th.
Beth, of the four groups that pulled the RFP, how many showed up for the site visit?
One developer showed up.
Do you need more than one bidder to have a bona fide public bid?
I don't believe so. No.
Can we get an opinion on that?
Sure.
Yeah, we can get an opinion. I asked that question too, and I was told that no, you can have one as long as you follow the public procurement process, so, but
Right.
we can get another, we can get
Oh,
a,
I mean, it only takes one, but I just think that's an important,
yeah,
it gets appealed later when you ask that question.
right, that's a good question. So, you know, this was on the agenda just to discuss the timeline here, so the idea would be, you know, at most, we would probably have to interview 4 people. So, you know, the idea would be maybe to interview everyone August 15th, and then that would give all the boards and committees time to submit input, you know, over those, you know, next few weeks, you know, for a possible vote September 12th. So just want to make sure there's enough time for everyone to, you know, to review the proposals and submit, you know, some input, and also give us time to, you know, interview everyone. Does anyone have any issue with this calendar, or, you know, if we, you know, obviously we can revise it if we, you know, if we don't get any responses or anything like that, but, you know, just trying to look for a timetable for staff, and to process these applications, so.
Makes sense to me, and I know that we had, you know, discussed, or I think you had mentioned, Rich, about maybe sending out to town meeting members, you know, August, September, kind of a preview of the bigger items that, you know, and this would be one of them, so I think it would be consistent with that timeline that we'd be able to provide some general public information if people aren't otherwise paying attention over the summer and, you know, attending the meetings, and so I think it seems like it makes sense for us.
Any other thoughts?
Just want to make sure that whoever we need to share it with, we should share it with. So there's not an allegation that we weren't transparent, that there was some other agenda when there's no agenda at all.
Yeah,
Other
absolutely.
than do what's best for the town.
Great.
Although I thought I saw you drive by when we were doing the site
I
visit,
did.
right?
This
And I,
was
you
the
know, so
station.
now I'm suspicious, so.
It's busted. It's a work day too.
In terms of feedback from other boards, we may just want to give them that. I don't know if they're listening, but
They're always listening.
there's a lot, you know, going on in the summertime, but to give them the heads up that when those interviews will be taking place, and
No, I think it's a good point. I think what we should probably do is, you know, we'll get to this in our next topic, is, you know, we're gonna send out hopefully a memo by the end of July to town meeting members just about what we're working on, and kind of stay tuned to our meetings, and we should do the same thing with all the boards, that, you know, this is, you know, people are wondering about Washington Swan Street, here's, you know, the timeline as we stand now, and it just, you know, means people will tune in and they know when the documents will be available, and, you know, when they'll have a chance to, you know, input, and when possibly we make a decision, so.
Yeah, and especially to Anthony's point, a lot of boards take off the month of August. So, and I know even the Housing Partnership Board, I think
Not
it's,
this
you know,
board, we'll be working hard.
right. Yes, but and to remind people also that you know, remote meetings were approved as well. So if that's the case, just to make sure people can put those on the calendar too.
Yep. Okay, so if no one has any issue with this, we'll go with this timeline?
Yeah, it's good.
All right, great. All right, well, I checked off the wrong thing. All right, that's a good segue into the fall town meeting articles. And so I think in Beth's report, there was a list.
On the first page.
Thank you. So based on our discussions in the last few meetings and what we have out right now, this would be a loose list of what we would be presenting, working towards presenting at fall town meeting. So we've got the Washington Swanton Street LDA, funding of the Healthcare Stabilization Fund that we created at the spring town meeting. We would need to consider if we wanted to put any, ask the town meeting for a transfer into that account based on any savings that we've realized, and I know that's still being calculated as we speak. The Community Preservation Act, I know Anthea and Mike are working on that. Borrowing authorization for the final pump station servicing Arbor Lane and Wendell Street, that's been an ongoing project that we've been working towards. We appropriate funds for the Lynch School traffic improvements. We funded design costs at town meeting, spring town meeting, and then our standard articles, which are board and committee reports. So I didn't know if that was, right now as we sit here today, a comprehensive list of what we're working towards, if there's additional items. I know we've talked about the accessory dwelling stuff, but if there's anything else on the horizon that, we haven't broached as a subject. I know we've got the tree working group coming in, and we've got the leaf blower citizens coming in. I think they're both August 15th?
Yeah.
August 15th. So we have some citizens petitions out there, and the warrant doesn't close until September 26th. Am I right about that? So we've got, because town meeting's a little later this year because of the election, so we've got a little extra time. But that's kind of where we're at this point. I didn't know if we're missing anything, any outliers out there? All right, not that that's nothing, but.
Pump station is from water and sewer?
Yes.
So chapter 110 and water and sewer.
Yep.
So what I would recommend, you give permission, because I think we need permission now, or at least a vote based on the moderator's rules, would be allow me to draft a memo to send out to town meeting members, just highlighting these items and the Washington Swanton Street timeline that we just talked about, and that, this is what we'll be considering in our August and September meetings, and, certainly, feel free to tune in, and we welcome, participation from the community. Just around these items, would that be okay? If I can get that out by the end of July?
Do you need a vote on that?
I think I need a vote on that, based on the new rules from the moderator.
What
You
are the-
look puzzled with your.
What's the new rule? What?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, town meeting members or members, but I thought the moderator made a rule that boards were not allowed to send memos to town meeting unless there was a vote of the board to approve that memo. I mean, I could look at the rules. I mean, I thought I saw something.
I don't recall specifically, but
I would feel more comfortable with that, because I did read something back at Springtown meeting.
I don't think it would hurt.
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt. So I thought I saw that somewhere. That we need to, a one-off member can't just send a memo out from the select board or planning board or anything like that. It needs to be, if it's coming from that board, it needs to be approved by that board and say that it's been
That makes sense.
approved by the board. Yeah.
So can we see the memo before we approve it, or is it just?
You can.
Yeah, I mean, does it need to be?
I was just hoping to get it out, for our August meetings. So I don't know. We don't have a meeting
So
to vote.
the memo is to give.
You can give me authorization.
Town meeting members a heads up of our schedule of when we will be covering these articles that will come.
Yeah, this is what we're working towards for fall town meeting. This is, these are our meeting dates. Please feel free to tune in, and check our agendas regularly to see what we're discussing. And here's the agenda, here's the schedule for Swan and Washington Street, which seems to be, a popular topic.
So for PSA, you need to take a vote? Public service announcement?
Yes, I think so.
I think it's probably, the rule is probably more intended, like, if the board is taking
I think the rules,
a position, but it
Yeah.
taking a
seems,
position on an article, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm
But
just
it-
trying to
it wouldn't
follow,
hurt
just trying to
to
follow the
have a vote,
rules.
Well, it's just also, it establishes a precedent, right? So we might not always be in a position to know exactly where we are and everything at the point that we're sending a communication out. Seems like the select board is a, fairly legitimate organization, to send, if the chair sends something out to town meeting members, but whatever, I mean, happy to take a vote if it's,
I think we can authorize the chair to send a memo with these articles that are listed here, and then whatever dates you decide they're gonna be covered on. Like, we don't have to know what the exact wording of.
yeah, it's subject,
Yeah,
I guess,
fine.
subject to change, and, I guess it's just,
So-
not a finite list of what we
Yeah,
would
so,
be doing.
I'm not making this up. This is from May 31st, 2022. Dear chairs of boards and committees. It talks about communications. It says, any board or committee is requested to provide any written communication intended for town meeting members to the moderator, town clerk, and assistant town clerk. Communication to the town meeting members are required to include the following: name of board committee, name of members, document dated, signature line, the vote of the board committee approving such communication on their behalf. Upon receipt, the town clerk will submit the communication to the meeting via email and/or paper handout, if appropriate. Please try to submit your communications by the start of a business day.
So, are we also mailing it to town meetings?
No, I would just email it.
Okay, I mean, I know that some people had removed their emails as far as town meeting members.
We can mail it too. I don't care.
we can talk to Mary Ellen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Mary Ellen, my whole point is, we have this communication study going on. We've, a couple of instances that we've had in the last couple of town meetings is we've had people come in and say, I didn't know you were talking about this. I didn't know this was coming up. So the idea is to be, not that we're not transparent, but be, overly transparent that, hey, look, this is what we're working on. It's summer. We know you have 1.5 million better than things to do on a Monday night at 9 o'clock than rather than watch the select board meeting. But, just to give you a heads up, this is what we're working towards. And so, you might decide that, rather than watch The Bachelorette tonight, you're gonna watch the select board meeting because, you care about this one issue.
it was the Women's World Championship 1500, actually.
Oh, is that what's on tonight? Sorry, we'll try to get you on as soon as I can.
Yeah.
It already happened.
Rich's agenda is a little bit different for his recordings.
I'm just thinking of a show that's constantly on Mondays.
Yeah, we know it's on our DVR.
Is that recorded?
Can I make a suggestion? Is that you put it together,
Yep.
and then what I do is I take the final document and I put it in DocuSign, and each one of you sign it.
That's fine.
That way you know you've read it, and it's not a,
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't think it to be a very long or complex memo. It's just gonna be, this is what we're.
Yeah, and
It's
as long
basically
as-
have this list, and it's gonna have the list of the timeline.
As long as people know that it's not a finite list, because,
Right,
we
no.
always are adding and, subtracting, in the,
Right.
in the coming months. And, we also don't want people to have the expectation in, future years to say, oh, hey, I never got this, notice, from the boards and committees that this was being discussed privately.
Yeah, no, I think it's all possibilities is what it is.
Okay, sounds fun.
By the way, did we turn the air conditioning off in here?
it didn't turn
Feels a
on,
little
I
warm
went to
now.
try to do it, so.
One mention of the Bachelorette. and
I
that's
mean,
it.
I'm really sweating it out.
It's all right.
I'm really sweating
It's
up in
all
these
right.
next
It's
few
all right.
minutes.
We got it.
If you turn on.
There you go. Perfect. All right, so, can I just have a motion to send that memo out?
Yeah, I move we authorize the chair to write a memo to town meeting members regarding the proposed fall town meeting articles and upcoming select board agenda items, including the Washington Swanton RFP.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No? Great. Okay. We have a couple of committee and commission appointments for incumbents. If we want to just do those next.
I move we reappoint to the Cable Advisory Committee Walter Hubbard for the term to expire June 30th, 2025.
And Ashley Stevens.
And, yeah, so I'm doing them together.
Oh, do we do them together?
You can do them together.
Yeah, we can do it together.
So I move we reappoint to the Cable Advisory Committee Walter Hubbard and Ashley Stevens for the term to expire June 30th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Great.
I move we reappoint to the Field Management Committee Patrick Gill for the term to expire July 1st, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
And then I move we reappoint to the Heritage District Commission John Clemson for the term to expire July 15th, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else we need Beth for?
Just a quick question on transition to town council, how that's going, and you know, and so forth, and office hours, and just is that going to be made available and what that looks
Yep.
like?
So I think there's a memo that's been sent out to all the boards and chairs. There's a meeting, I think Beth, you're holding tomorrow with both current and incoming council to talk about transition. So it's moving along as we speak.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, at this point, Beth?
One quick thing too, sorry. I know that we've been talking about the Charter Review Committee for a long time too, so if we're talking to, Mary Ellen about sending the notice out, I don't know if this would be something for town meeting members and, I don't know if we probably would have town meeting members on the Charter Review Committee, right, that we'd be looking for?
Yeah, it's been on our future agenda items for a while. I
Yeah.
have to admit, I mean, what are we, who's doing the charter review and?
You are, Rich, we
I
assigned
am.
you to the meeting. No, I think that, Mary, there's a process involved,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things that are small corrections and that need to be made, but also just some, I think, discussion items. And I think it's typically made up of town meeting members and other community stakeholders, and
Okay.
might want to chat with Mary Ellen just to see where she sees that.
Yeah, Beth, if we could just get more information on.
Sure. Yeah, it's on my list to discuss with council tomorrow as well, so.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you. All right, with that, I think Beth's gonna recuse herself from the next agenda item, which is our town manager search.
Night.
Thanks, Beth.
Great,
Have a great
thanks,
night. So the next two items, town manager search, town manager evaluation. So first, the search. I did, based on our conversation last time, I had Mark Toogood just kind of, with the help of the HR director, poke around at the different entities out there that do these types of searches. And what came back from the search was that there's pretty much one company, Community Paradigm, that does most of the searches for the municipalities, close to 75 or 80% of the municipalities that do searches. And so there was an initial contact made, an initial conversation, and I guess the threshold question is, is this something that we see, going over $10,000, or where we would need to put out an RFP, or is this something that we would have under $10,000? And what my understanding, Community Paradigm's report was that basically their first question is, whether we as a select board would want to use a search committee or not, and that would drastically affect the price. So if we internally manage the search as the select board, they would envision that process being under $10,000. But if we were to utilize a search committee, it might most likely, go over that threshold. And, with that, and that's the initial question I want to discuss tonight. With that question being answered, then, I think the next step would be, two of us, setting up a meeting or Zooming with, one of these agencies and figuring out, what type of search and coming up with a proposal to bring back to the rest of the board. So I think that's the fundamental question. Do we envision using a search committee for this process, or do we envision managing the search ourselves?
Do we need a committee?
I mean, I personally don't think we need one, but, I defer to all of you. I think, this is something that we can manage, as a board, obviously with the help of the consultant, and do it that way, but, I can see it the other way too, so.
I agree. I don't think that we need a committee, but I also know that the confidentiality of the applicants is an important piece of it, right? So, and that was really the process. That was the reason for having the committee was we wouldn't be involved until there was a recommendation moved forward, right? And that helps applicants that are in current positions, right? Because it protects them from their employer, being aware of their application. So that's the only question for Paradigm is how would it work in the background and protect the applicants.
So there's no NDA signed by us? I gotta believe there is.
Well,
Right,
once we all see it, it's public unless it, so.
So I think we're not even there yet. So I think that the initial question from Paradigm is, how do you envision that your process working? And then from there, the two of us can certainly, those are good questions.
Yep.
Answer those types of questions, figure out what the process is that they're recommending and the costs associated with it, and then report back to the board on that.
I'm happy to help with that process, Rich, at least, at the outset to see what works. I don't think it's, but I think we can probably do it for under 10 at this point. I don't know.
But
That's my sense.
Whether you spend $10,000 or $20,000, I'm not saying it's irrelevant, but it's not relevant if you get the right candidate. So to me, it's just whether a committee process.
Right. What do you think is going to yield the best
outcome?
What do you think? Yeah, exactly.
It'd be interesting to know what we've done historically. I know the most recent search had a committee, but I don't know before that what things looked like. If that was a break from tradition or if that is.
I mean, I think historically, I think they've done it both ways in the town.
And I think that there's been, every community does it different, right? And there's kind of mixed results here and, around the Commonwealth. I did hear on NPR recently just about how few town managers there are out there applying for these positions, and that it's I think a longer process, more involved process might not benefit us as much as we think, because there's a lot of communities vying for candidates. But either way, it's fine with me. The thing about the 10,000 and between 10,000 and 20,000 is then we would have to issue an RFP, right? So if we go above 10.
Right, we couldn't just use Paradigm, we'd have to put an RFP out.
I understand that, but I want the best candidate.
Yeah.
Right.
And RFP, no RFP.
Yeah, but RFP makes the process longer.
I understand. I get that. I do understand that.
And we need
but if you think does that mean that if we go to RFP, the process takes 6 weeks longer, 8 weeks longer, whatever that is? Does that mean that we're going to lose a pool of candidates? Because we don't know who the pool is right now. Because there's a ton of other towns vying for candidates right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they vied for candidates already. I think we're kind of late to the game.
Right,
we are.
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm
Really
saying.
late. I mean, that was the spring. Typically, that's typically the spring. So it's a, I don't want to say an unusual time, but it's a kind of a different time to be looking for a town manager right now.
Yeah, and my concern is not having a permanent town manager is that we have to fill a very important, the DPW department head position.
Right.
And I think that search becomes harder if we don't have a permanent town manager appointed. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would agree with that, but yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. So what I would propose doing at this point is, maybe having, if you're willing, to sit down, you, me, Mark Toogood, and Paradigm, and see what, the conversation, what if we were to manage ourselves, what would the proposal be? And kind of report that back to the board, either at our next meeting or the August 15th meeting, depending on how fast we can get that. And seeing what that looks like, and, I can certainly ask, what do you think is going to yield us the best candidate, that type of stuff, and go from there. If we don't like it, you have doubts from now until our next meeting, certainly we can address that at our next meeting, but we have to start somewhere with a proposal, so this would be, at least a starting point, and if you think, over the next couple of weeks, you think, no, I think we should have a search committee, then we can talk about that at our next meeting, but I thought, at least kick the tires on this, managing it ourselves and seeing what,
So it doesn't sound like anybody's pushing for a search committee. That's like.
Well, that was my initial question from all of you at this point. If the pleasure of the board was to have a search committee and to formulate that, then we should start that process sooner rather than later. If it's to kind of, investigate an option of us controlling the process, then we should, we should further that conversation with Paradigm and see what it would cost.
Yeah. I think in the absence of having a search committee, we need to be very clear about soliciting feedback that's representative and not giving the impression that it's just, the five of us making a decision. So understanding from Paradigm what their process is for that, I think would be helpful in comparing that to a search committee that is, having some broad representation from the town on the town's needs.
I think that's a great.
And if they're, they were actually the ones that were on this NPR article that newscast that I heard about. It was Paradigm, and they had interviewed a couple of the town managers and discussed with them why they were leaving positions or why not, and how the past couple of years have been. So they might be able to provide feedback to us with speaking some of the town managers that are out there, or applicants, or assistant town managers or town administrators. Hey, would you not apply to a community where the select board was doing the search, on their own, or would you rather just throw an application in to a community that had a search committee, because we have, I think, the past couple of times had a search committee, so we want to make sure that the community is prepared for if we make a change in our process. So.
Yeah, no, I think both you and Anthea raised good points. So, just I guess my point was if the pleasure of the board tonight was no, we need a search committee, let's just get a search committee, then we would just further that step. If it's to kind of explore this option, then I think it's worth a conversation with Paradigm and getting a proposal and reporting back to the table, to the board.
Well, one of the benefits of when we have used a search company in the past is they have an ear to the ground, and they're speaking to other potential candidates throughout the Commonwealth, right? So they can probably help us out a little bit with making that decision too, because I really don't know if I could see both ways. Maybe some town manager applicants would see it as a benefit that it's only the select board doing it, and some of them maybe would rather a committee. I don't know.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I'd like to get an understanding on what the confidentiality will be for candidates, whether we have a committee or not, right? Because that's going to make a big impact on who applies, especially people who are currently in jobs. And and I am concerned about not, the one concern on not having a committee is that the community will feel like there's no input into a very important position. But on the other hand, my concern with the committee is the time that it will take, and that we are in a time crunch. So I think those.
So they also elected us to make decisions.
What's that?
They also elected us to make decisions, and I'm comfortable with that.
Well, but there's a lot of concern about getting everybody being able to provide input, right?
I get it. No, I understand, Mario.
And kind of what seems to happen in our experience here in Winchester and other communities throughout the Commonwealth is there'll be applicants that are protected by their confidentiality through the committee process, and then they get moved forward, and the committee says these are the best, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, I don't want to be considered anymore, and then they withdraw, right? So
we've had that happen last time.
And it happens actually more often than not. So I think a lot of communities kick the tires. A lot of applicants kick the tires on other positions, and then they maybe have a conversation with their community about, hey, do you want to keep me or not? And so I don't know. I don't know if there's a silver bullet to it, but Paradigm probably can help us answer some of those questions.
Okay.
If that's who we choose to go with. I mean,
So it sounds like everyone's comfortable with Anthea and I, with the assistant town manager having a conversation with Paradigm and getting a proposal and getting these questions. These are all good questions. You know, certainly reach out to Mark if you have additional questions that you want to ask. You can go from there. Do you?
That's good, thank you.
Help me with that?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, great. And then the last item before the consent agenda is just a town manager evaluation. So my plan is I have the 360 review kind of it needed some retooling based on our current situation, and my goal is to have that to all of you to look at for our next meeting.
Just a quick question, what is the 360 review?
So yeah, good question.
By consultant, or was that?
Yeah, so, well, you guys can answer it better than I could probably, but it was developed to evaluate, you know, our last town manager. It was, you know, involved community input, department head
So that's
input.
what the 360 means, is this how
Yeah.
we're looking and we're, okay.
Correct. And it was developed with our labor council, and, you know, given our current situation, I mean, I think there's some, you know, there's some question of, you know, how applicable all the questions are, so I've kind of been working on reworking it a little bit for our current situation to give Beth a fair evaluation. So, you know, I know some of you haven't even seen it yet, so my goal is just to have that to all of you so you can see it for the next meeting, and then, you know, hopefully get that out in conjunction with this. That sound okay?
Sounds great.
Yeah, and the job is, you know, changed a little bit, right? It's kind of a three-headed monster.
Well, that's the
at this
thing. That's
point.
why it doesn't
So,
it's not all applicable.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, and, you know, I don't know if the HR department can help out or labor council, but whatever, it's,
Yep.
whatever needs to get done.
Yeah, we're trying to handle this internally. I mean, I don't think it's something we need to involve labor council at this point. Just, you know, if we have questions, certainly, but, you know, I don't want unnecessary costs on it, so. But, you know, certainly I'll have a draft to all of you so you can see it before and comment on it before we use it. Okay? All right, I think that covers our business agenda. So I think we just have a consent agenda and then maybe one item on the supplemental agenda. Just on the consent agenda, just so everyone's clear, on number 3, for the permit for the Middlesex Driving School, I've heard a lot about this in the last couple of days. Just so everyone's clear, my understanding is what we're approving is simply to put benches and planters on the sidewalk that is ADA compliant, but their sandwich boards that they sometimes place in the street or on the sidewalk are not part of this approval. Because I know there's been some complaints from neighbors and people in the area about the use of those, so.
That was my concern, because it seemed the letter that we got from
Right.
Business was requesting for the sandwich board to be, and I just want to make sure that we're using the same evaluation criteria for those applications, because then our next meeting, we're gonna have 30 applications for sandwich boards in the street. So as long as that's excluded as part of the request, then I'm fine.
Okay, and I believe, you know, the way it's worded here, that would be excluded.
Yeah, okay.
Any questions about that?
Nope.
Right.
On item 2,
Yep.
did they submit a plan to make sure that, you know, it doesn't impede like ADA compliance? I didn't see that on the packet.
I believe they did, and it was all positive. Everything was positive feedback. So I think Jen ran that through proper channels.
I move we approve the consent agenda as posted on the Monday, July 18th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I move we approve the consent agenda as posted to the supplemental agenda for the Monday, July 18th meeting.
I think we need to read that one out since it wasn't posted.
Yes. So I move we approve the one-day liquor license for Krista Dix for the Griffin Museum for August 4th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No one opposed, great. I think that's everything. Miss anything, Patty?
It's not 11:30 yet.
Oh. Stay.
Well, the Bachelorette's still on, so I gotta go home and watch it. Just a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks, WinCam.
Thank you.